right, now look, today I'm finna show y'all how I make my, keyword, my French onion soup. So let's get into the ingredients, shall we? All right. I have 8 cloves of garlic here, 5 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Of course, you've got to have Gruyere cheese. There's no other cheese that I feel like pairs well with French onion soup. So just splurge, do what you got to do, and get yourself some really good Gruyere. I have 4 cups of beef stock here. Now, you guys have already seen how I make my beef stock from scratch. So if you decide to use the beef stock from scratch, just understand that you're going to end up slapping your mama because it is going to step it up a notch. If you use the store-bought kind, that's also totally fine, but just make sure that you get the best quality one possible. There's not that many ingredients that go in French onion soup, so if you start off with a high-quality stock, it is going to make a big difference. I also like to use a variety of onions. I have 2 jumbo sweet onions and then a half of one there. I also like to use a combination of 2 large red onions and 3 shallots. You're also going to need rosemary, bay leaves, and thyme. The baguette, of course, for the bread. I'm going to be using a Cabernet Sauvignon. You do not have to use the brands that you're seeing. Just make sure that it's a dry red wine. I'm also going to be adding in a splash of bourbon, coarse kosher salt, black peppercorns. The neutral oil that I'll be working with is avocado oil. You see that? You see that? You see that? Don't ask me for the damn ingredient list. Let's get to work. All right, now, once again, let's talk about the onions. So I don't know where the hell they found these onions. I mean, why? Look, they're huge, huge. I don't know why they're this big. So if you can't find ones this big, you're probably in a safer part of town. But I would suggest using about 4 to 5 of them if you can't find ones this large. Again, I'm using 2 red onion as well as the shallots. There's no right or wrong way on how to cut these. I literally just cut it in half and then I cut them into crescent shapes. But you do want them to be nice and thin. You don't want them to be thick. So I'm going to do this to all of these onions and then place them inside of a bowl. This is honestly the most prep work that you're honestly going to have to do in the entire recipe, which is slicing up the onions. So let me get all of these done and then we'll be back momentarily. And if you don't go blind in the process, that means you're not cutting enough onion. And before I move on to cutting up my red onions, let me just show y'all something. Y'all see how many onions came from those 2 large onions? That's what I'm saying. Those onions were gigantic. Also, a little, safety tip. If you're ever cutting something with a knife on a cutting board, and if the cutting board itself keeps sliding around, place underneath the cutting board a wet rag so that it won't slide around. So that way you're not running the risk of chopping off your damn fingers. Keep on chopping, honey. We almost there. And now we can go on ahead and add in our shallots. And now all of our onions are completely done. Let's go on ahead and move over to the Dutch oven. Now, let me just go on ahead and say this now. You can go ahead and mince down your garlic now, but you're not going to be adding in the garlic until much later on in the process. These are going to take roughly about an hour to caramelize. If you do not want to rush this process, you want them to break down nice and slowly. Let's go ahead and get it going. In the bottom of my Dutch oven, I'm going to go in with a little bit of neutral oil. I would say that's roughly about a half a tablespoon. And I'm also going to add in the 5 sticks of the unsalted butter. Allow that to melt. Alrighty, now that this is starting to melt down, we can go on ahead and add in all of our onions. And I know, you guys, that this might look like a lot of onions, but trust me, they're going to break down so much that it's not going to seem like as much as you might think it is. Go on ahead and add all of those to the pot. And you'll be amazed to see how little onions we're going to have in about an hour's time once these actually caramelize down. You see how full the pot is right now. It's not going to look like that in about an hour's time. Remember, make sure the temperature is low and continue to mix periodically throughout the hour. You do not want these to burn, and you don't want to try to speed up the process by cooking them way too fast. You've got to allow all of that natural sugar and water to evaporate out of the pan. Speaking of which, let's go on ahead and add in some salt and pepper. I'm going to go in with a nice handful, well, not a handful, child, but a nice pinch or so of some coarse kosher salt. Some black peppercorn. I'm going to add in way more, don't worry. And we're also going to add in 1 tablespoon of sugar. That might seem like a lot, but trust me, it is not. Give all of this a good mix. Now, I just want to say this right now. The overall saltiness of your dish is going to highly, highly depend on what type of broth or what type of stock you're going to be working with. So this is one of those dishes where you are going to need to taste as you go, but just remember, you can always add salt to a dish. You cannot take it away. This process is going to take roughly about an hour. I'm going to continuously come in, give it a mix around. I'll come in and show you guys what it's looking like periodically throughout that hour span of time. But just remember to keep it on low and keep mixing, and everything will be just fine. So, as you guys can see, they're already starting to cook down, and it's only been about maybe 15 minutes. But one ingredient that I don't know if I mentioned earlier that we're going to add in now is a few dashes of Worcestershire sauce. Again, nothing about this recipe is really traditional. This is how I like to make it, and this is also how I used to make it when I worked at a cafe years ago, which was my original recipe. Just a few dashes will do you good. Give that a mix. It just smells absolutely heavenly in this house. Alrighty, you guys. So like I said, this process can take anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. But as you can see, a majority of the liquid, the water, is dissolving out of this. So it is extremely important to make sure that at this stage that you are continuously mixing. This is still not done. So that means you've got to keep an eye on it, or if not, it will burn. So, just keep an eye on it. So we have about another 10-15 minutes before this first phase of the French onion soup is done. So now we can go on ahead and add in that minced garlic and go ahead and give that a mix as well. Go ahead and make sure that you have all of your liquids ready to go. Like I said, that is 4 cups of the beef stock. I have a full pour of the bourbon, and I'm doing 2/3 of a cup of the red wine. We're now going to add in 2 tablespoons of the all-purpose flour and allow that to cook for roughly 1 to 2 minutes to allow that raw flour taste to cook off. This is going to help thicken up the soup itself. Now, to help deglaze the pot, we're going to go on ahead and add in that red wine, and we are going to allow that to reduce. We're also going to go on ahead and add in the bourbon as well. This is all adding in a lot of flavor to this pot. Now, I know a lot of you guys are going to ask me, can we not use the alcohol? You can do whatever you want to do. It's just not going to taste the exact same, but make the adjustments to your liking. And just letting you know now, this is about how much rosemary I'll be using, 2 bay leaves, and this is how much thyme that I'll be putting in the pot. Alrighty, you guys, so now we can go on ahead and start to add in all of the beef stock and give that a full mix. You can go ahead and place your fresh herbs in the pan, put the top on this, reduce the temperature to low, and allow this to go for about another 15 to 20 minutes. While your soup is starting to finish up, you can go on ahead and grate down your Gruyere cheese. Have your oven preheated to 400 degrees because we're going to put this under there to melt down that cheese. Also, you want to go on ahead and start to bake off your baguettes. I toss them in olive oil and then just put them in there for a few moments until they get nice and crispy. You want to make sure that you toast those up prior to putting it in the oven, because if not, it'll get completely soggy on the bottom. So getting them extra crunchy to begin with will help kind of alleviate that problem. Now would be the perfect time to go in and adjust your salt and pepper to your liking. Again, the salt ratio is going to drastically depend on what type of stock you're using, whether you're using it from scratch or if you're buying one from the store. So just taste it as you go. Okay, so you want to make sure that you are working with oven-safe bowls that can go in the oven. And I'm going to ladle some of my soup mixture directly into the bottom. You can put in as much or as little as you would like. Alrighty, so now that we have our soup in our bowls, we're going to go in with the Gruyere, and you guys know that the real reason why people get this soup is because of the Gruyere cheese, so don't be stingy. But I always like to go in with the layer at the bottom because that's also going to help with making sure that the bread itself does not get soggy. And speaking of the bread, you can add in as many or as little as you would like. I only add in about 2 because I like to have some on the side, and then I'm going to top it off with some more cheese. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and do 3 today because I'm feeling the need to be extra. Top it off with a little bit more cheese, and then we're going to throw this in the oven. Like I said, the oven is preheated right now at 400 degrees, so you want to keep an eye on this until all of this cheese has melted and is golden brown and bubbly goodness. And that, my friends, is how I make my French onion soup. I just go in with a little bit of fresh herbs right on the top and then serve it up. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. You will not be getting a taste test out of me, because what I will not be doing is giving myself 3rd-degree burn fooling around with y'all. Try this recipe, honey.